into positions of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, no, no. Not God Bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human. God damn America as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme.
All right, hello. We are now joined by Doug Lain, publishing manager of Zero Books. Welcome to the show, Doug. How are you?
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me on to spread my word of woe.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about what that woe is a little bit. You were censored, yeah?
Yeah. Zero Books is a critical theory or left-wing publisher, and we also though run a podcast and a YouTube channel to promote what we do. And one of our videos was taken down. It was removed because we apparently, according to the algorithm, violated community standards on COVID. Although the video that was taken down was not actually about COVID, and we did not violate the standards as described in the automated email that we got. But yeah, we had a video taken down.
So this video was, you were I believe from what I hear, you were telling people to not only not wear masks, but that the way to get over COVID was to let Alex Jones give you analingus.
Yeah.
That is technically not the case, but
he's denying it.
There's a how-to video on how to make jankum, right? That's the cure for COVID.
Yes, no, it was, but it was as if that's what the video was, because that's the kind of thing that I guess should be taken down or that would violate the community standards anyway. But no, it was not. It did have a clip of Alex Jones in it, and it was the video was about why the Great Reset, this thing coming out of the World Economic Forum and other places, has been taken up as a talking point by the far reactionary right and has become a conspiracy, and why the left, as it's kind of known in the United States, the progressive left, the statist left, sort of plays into the hands of the right, and aligns itself with forces which are against the working class, and why. There's a kernel of rationality. There's a rational kernel in the conspiracy theories, which is that the banks and the World Economic Forum, they're not your friends. They're not going to help you. The Great Reset is a bunch of bullshit, but it isn't some conspiracy planned out to destroy the economy and the American way of life either. That's just happening because of the way capitalism functions and the contradictions in our society. So, but yeah, that was the kind of thing that I was saying in the video. I also talked about Christopher Lasch and Paul Sweezy and did my usual sort of hyper-focused sectarian analysis of another leftist, dead leftist. That was the real purpose of the video, was to continue doing that. But I threw in the Great Reset as a clickbaity kind of subject to get people to look at the video.
Okay,
that was my big mistake.
This is making more sense now. So this is one of those things where you said something in quotes. I'm just referencing something, not using the language, and then
right.
A robot whose job it is to narc on people on the internet saw it and didn't take into context that it was reference and not use. So that happens, to all of us, I'm sure. It certainly happened to me at one point or another on Twitter, where the thing doesn't get your joke. The freaking robot says you said a word you're not supposed to say, and then they don't understand irony and things like that. Or people are able to report it and then feign misunderstanding and stuff like that. So sure, so this for all intents and purposes is should be a misunderstanding in theory if the system is supposed to work the way it does, right? But then what happened?
Right. Well, okay, so what happened was I uploaded the video twice. Luckily I didn't get counted twice, but the first time I uploaded it, it got removed, but I didn't really realize that it got removed until I had uploaded a second version. And I uploaded a second version because the first version had a little bit of music in it that was getting a copyright claim, so I couldn't monetize it. So I re-edited it with royalty-free music and put it back up. And while I was putting it back up, the first video was taken down. And then the second video just was sitting there. I wasn't getting a lot of views at all. And I thought, uh-oh, this is being suppressed. Something's happening because of this mistake they've made taking down the video, the first version. So I got on chat with a representative, and I explained to them that it wasn't what it seemed. I guess the algorithm had heard Alex Jones being, quoted, or it was like a little clip of him, and gotten all excited, and that anybody who watched it would realize that that was a mistake.
Oh.
And I hope that it wouldn't suppress the second version. And they were like, oh yeah, well, you clarified what the video was about in the description, and I'm sure this will be taken care of on appeal, but and no, we're not suppressing you right now. And they didn't really know, but they were just putting out the party line. So by the time I was done with that chat, I felt better until I saw that the second version of the video had been taken down as well. And then the next day, the appeal that I put through on through the automated service there was rejected with another form letter, and that was the end of the process. There's no more official process to get them to reconsider their decision. And I'm guessing that no human being really considered the video after the appeal either, or it just seems unlikely to me that anyone sat down and watched the full 20 minutes or 17 minutes of the video, or even the first 5 minutes, and came to the conclusion that, oh yeah, this needs to be removed.
Yeah, so the picture here sort of looks like you probably just got caught in some bureaucratic red tape that the system is kind of unaware and doesn't care that it could potentially have a drastic impact on what you're doing at Zero Books and your own livelihood and that sort of stuff, right? This is one of those
right,
things.
Because when you get a strike for violating community standards on YouTube, it's a serious thing, because if you do that a couple of times, then you can just get completely removed from YouTube and everything thrown away. And we've spent years trying to build up the platform to use it as a way to publicize our work, and it's actually even a source of revenue for the imprint, and not a big one, but so yeah, it's serious. And also I really enjoy making the videos, so I don't want to be thrown off YouTube for a glitch. And right now we have a warning on the channel saying if we do this again, or interpret it differently, if the YouTube algorithm misinterprets what we're doing again, we could easily just be shut down altogether. Well,
I certainly have sympathy for you as someone who was recently put in Twitter jail for stating the true statement, allegedly, that comedians probably should all be shot in the face as a joke. Parody, allegedly, with asterisks around this a million times. But, this is something that happens to me and my friends, and I'm sure people that listen to the show or other comics and stuff like that, is, I'm fucking around here, but even as a comic, what you're doing in theory is, you're supposed to say stuff like that. You're supposed to be testing out, ideas and things like that. And it very well can end up nuking your entire platform from time to time. I mean, I think, I probably use my web presence to get people to listen to this show. I'm on some level has to be part of our livelihood. And, so these sorts of things just being out in the Wild West right now, not the new sort of frontier, what do you call it, wilderness. Well,
we're not in the Wild West anymore. There's a new robot in town.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, there's a goddamn sheriff robot here to.
Yeah, we're on the giant spider from Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
I'm curious what the staffer was like from YouTube. Were they genuinely curious as to what the content of the video was? Did they seem to have some sort of sense of purpose in their work, or were they just totally just agitated and could not care less?
It wasn't. They were perfectly nice. I don't know who they were particularly. They were like, it was text on a screen, but like I used to work at Comcast back in the day, back in the like a decade ago, and I took complaint calls. Sometimes I was supposed to try to sell everybody who called in to complain about their service, a new service. It was a horrible job, but it felt like talking to a representative at something like Comcast or anywhere else. They clearly had a script, but you can be a human being while you're doing that, and this was a human being who was trying to do their best, but they weren't like saying things like, "Oh, tell me about who Christopher Lash was," or
so you weren't radicalizing them over
no.
chat.
That would have been my goal, of course. It's always my goal as a rabid Marxist to radicalize everyone, like go to my kids' kindergarten class and try to get the teacher to listen to me. But no, that didn't happen. But I did get the feeling that there were human beings working for Google, for YouTube, and that someone would look at it and that I would win the appeal, and that was a false sense of security. I wonder if I was talking to a bot. It's possible I was, but it's unclear. But I hope I wouldn't be fooled.
Yeah, well, it's harder and harder to know these days with like deep fake technology and stuff like that. Eventually, they're going to be able to make you not realize that the person you're talking to is completely mechanical. And I think what they should do once we get that far into deepfakes is when you call because your internet is out, it should just be Barack Obama's voice, and he answers the phone and guides you through not getting your shit fixed or whatever. But anyway,
yeah, he could try to sell you TV. He could tell you, "Have you seen Devs? Because it's on Showtime or what the hell it is."
Yeah,
he has a lot of recommendations.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, dude.
I'm sorry, your line is not being clear.
It makes me so mad when he puts out those recommendations because I'm like, how did you watch more TV than me this year? What the fuck? I guess now.
Well, he's retired, man.
Yeah.
He does. What does he have to do? To fly around on jet skis with billionaires and watch, prestige TV and
hang out at his compound. I biked to his. I live in DC, so I went by his house, and it's like there's guards, and it's cordoned off at the corner of this like. It's in DC, but it's this like very suburban block. It's very strange. It's like the Playboy Mansion or something.
Really? Are there celebrities going in and out?
Probably, but they're all wearing disguises.
Weird. Yeah. Oh yeah, eyes wide shut masks and shit like that. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, anyway, let's kind of let's get into why this is important, because we didn't just decide to do a podcast about how. Douglas had a bad customer service experience. I think you have something kind of more. You gleaned something from this, right? Like you wrote an essay about it. I thought was kind of interesting because this is something that we all kind of experience, and there are huge questions being thrown around in the discourse on Twitter and between pundits and journalists and leftists and stuff like that regarding free speech. So it is kind of an interesting conversation. Let's get into it. You're mentioning this Lash character a lot. Why don't you tell me a little bit about this?
Well, okay. Well, I'll go right to Christopher Lash and say that, Christopher Lash was a critic of kind of the progressive movement of his time, that the way that elites were, the left was being taken over by elites and who the way the left embraced the idea that the role of that their whole purpose should be to improve the lives of the masses through state policy, rather than, as had been the case, to help organize a movement for like working class power to change society. So it's more about managing the problems of society, and that included regular people as problems, so that the state could solve. But Lash also thought that some of the better versions of this kind of politics were still worthy of being allies in a socialist movement, as long as they held to certain basic liberal values, like, for instance, the freedom of speech and free freedom to think and develop ideas together, that core value of liberal democracy was something that these statist elites still were kind of the defenders of in 1969, and that therefore, if for no other reason, they were deserving of being allies. I would say that today that's no longer the case, especially for people who want to develop an actual working class politics rather than who want to make sure that their favorite bureaucrat gets elected, or whose primary concern is that a more humane version, or capitalism with a human face, wins the day for another like week or month or 4 years or what have you. So yeah, Christopher Lasch is an important figure in the background here. It's sort of complicated to figure out exactly how or why, but he is a critic of the kind of liberalism or radical liberalism that dominates a lot of the thinking of even the best leftists today, and that one of the reasons why we can embrace from time to time the actions of mega corporations and banks as if they are progressive institutions in a deep sense, like they really represent progress, just because our reactionary enemies are also being hit by their machinations and their policies.
So the thinking was that in this like pursuit of free inquiry in a liberal democracy, that would lead to more people being radicalized, as we were just discussing, like just the fact that there were liberals in power who had this principle of free speech that would allow more of a free exchange of ideas, and that would expose people to Marxism. And
right, if you're living in a totalitarian state which won't allow you to speak unless you speak the official lines, then you're certainly not going to be able to develop a deep critique of the economic and political system and use that to organize working people to change it.
Yeah, that kind of it's an interesting conversation because it's gone in circles throughout history. We talked about Lenin, I think last week or 2 weeks ago on this episode, and what he was writing about, in the prelude to the 1905 revolution in Russia. And these conversations are, centuries old at this point. This all kind of reminds me of something that happened recently, which is that there was a question of working with liberalism in some sort of Jacobin headline that was the argument of the day on Twitter or whatever. And it sort of goes to show you that it's something that's like kind of the $1 million question. It hasn't really been solved yet, and we're just at a new iteration of whether or not this thing can, what the tactic is next. Like, the important thing is we're all kind of on the same page in terms of theory, but then like the next thing, the praxis, the tactic, or whatever, is up for debate. And I guess. Yeah, to sort of counter this Lasch idea of you can work with liberalism or something like we have right now, where there's a broad space for free speech to exist and for ideas to flourish, being ultimately the fertile ground in which some sort of revolutionary idea will then come forth. We can look at that and sort of go, well, no, I mean, actually, this is like this is actually a really huge pitfall in itself. Capitalism existing often manifests. It often takes like the teeth off of counter revolution, or it takes the teeth off of revolutionary ideas. It sort of turns revolutionary politics into capitalism. It sells you a Che Guevara T-shirt. It gives you like an AOC, and we all wonder, is she going to be able to do anything that actually helps us? And then sometimes we get scared and go, maybe she's not. Maybe maybe it's going to turn every democratic socialist style politician into a liberal eventually. And I don't know the answer to this, and I don't think anyone on the internet certainly does right now.
Yeah, I mean, no. Look, it's a really tough question, and not just because they can sell us a revolution as an image and get us to drink revolution soda or whatever, but also because it's like from the beginning of the socialist project, at least in Marx's time, the idea was that capitalist development and bourgeois society would produce the conditions for its own abolition. And that, the primary thing that it produced that would end up being the means by which the social form was abolished was the working class.
Yeah.
That is the thing that capitalism produces, en masse, and those are the people that are being created, the kinds of people that are being created, and those are the subjects that are tasked with overcoming capitalism. But that the truth is that the working class as a political force has suffered massive defeats historically, that in many ways Marx was a pie-eyed optimist, and we are stuck trying to figure out things that seem to be already solved back in the 19th century. Like, how do we go from being a working class that's exploited to being a working class that has a political aim of transcending its own conditions? I mean, that seemed to be already on the table, firmly established in action in the second half of the 19th century. By the time you get out of the Second World War, that whole political movement has been crushed. And so now we're trying to pick up the remnants of that and recreate it or create a new version of it. And, we're doing that within the context of a very contradictory and dysfunctional society. Like, the free speech debate, one of the things you often hear in opposition to people who are free speech absolutists, like I try to be, is like, the free market doesn't create free speech. And furthermore, political change doesn't really come out of just the invention of ideas. And both those objections are true. The free market is not a neutral mechanism for the sorting of the best ideas. And it's also true that you can have a great idea in isolation, and it doesn't necessarily lead anywhere unless you are engaged in some sort of struggle and engaged in and have some sense of solidarity with other people, which may at times feel like a bit of censorship to your free speech if you're the kind of person that likes to make edgy jokes or something. And, so you have to sacrifice that in the name of solidarity with people. So there are problems and contradictions around this, but it's pretty clear when it comes to major corporate entities collaborating with the state to institute political repression and censorship at a time of crisis, that we've got a big problem and that the left shouldn't embrace these entities, even when they, censor people who we figure are political enemies, are marginalized political enemies, by the way. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
On the pie-eyed optimist point, like, I spent a big chunk of 2019, most of 2019, just fantasizing about, I drink a big glass of Kratom and then just fantasize about Jeremy Corbyn and Bernie Sanders taking power, and together and through, our two lefts, the transatlantic left would be forming just a new global economy, and working through that would, I think, have the way I imagined it would be educating people as to how capitalism functions, what it is, and establishing a grounding to really create a new type of society. And that came crumbling down, and it's been tragic, and we're trying to regroup, and it's just hard to know what to do. But I think the key is really getting people to think beyond capitalism. But like you said, that's not something that's going to come from just the right argument, the right, podcast. Right. I mean, that's part of it, but it really comes from organization and structures that are actually engaging with people in various ways, and building towards actually contesting power again.
Let me connect some dots here. I think I'm starting to get a picture of what we're talking about. So Lash kind of had this idea that you could work alongside the more liberal side of the left, the center left. in order to breed more radicalism that'll sort of get us to where we need to go, right? And then we're sort of looking at that and going, well, especially the moment we're at here at the end of 2020 with this year, being the death of the Bernie campaign and, things, the electoral route altogether kind of being in question, we sort of kind of look at all this and go, okay, like, no, maybe coexisting with the center is entirely the problem. Maybe that's maybe that's not true. And also, I don't know. I mean, I guess I still have Lenin on the brain because I was reading him a couple weeks ago for the show or whatever. But you look at the Russian Revolution and you go, well, though that happened underneath the Tsar, so that is an example of maybe how revolutionary thought can exist alongside repression. In fact, it has to, because, I don't know. This is maybe a circular argument, but this thing he says where he sort of makes this assertion that that Marxist praxis can't happen during repression, while like repression exists. It's kind of interesting, and I guess I'm gonna kind of posit that like no, it has to exist alongside repression, but that's neither here nor there. Second part that I kind of wanted to draw into this is, so in your essay and your video essay, which will both be tagged in the show notes here, we sort of draw this distinction between 1930s socialists and modern socialists, where in the 1930s, like you were saying, the working class was the subject of socialism. It was the subject, and the object was, that the goal was to abolish your own class if you were part of the working class. Modern socialism conceives of the working class as the object, the end goal, like the economists we talked about in that previous episode that I keep referencing. But when you think about the working class as the object, as the end goal, it sort of overlaps and enmeshes with this thing that capitalism does, where it creates problems in order to sell you solutions to them. And then you find yourself in the internet and you're, arguing with a robot over whether your YouTube channel can be, kept up or not. And this is all the framework of YouTube, a sort of private organization ultimately that works alongside the state, who has a goal that, and this is where I think me and you might argue about this, is its goal, to me, it's a private company, so its goal is just its own bullshit. But, we can argue that, well, maybe there's a better way to regulate it to where something known as free speech, something more like objective, can kind of exist. And then we're all able to, to coordinate on it, or I don't know. I guess my question here is that
obviously, I don't think that these corporations are ever going to embrace free speech on their own, and obviously, some sort of intervention from political movement would be necessary to change the character of these, like Google or Facebook or what have you. But I want to point out something important about what Lash thought about radical liberalism. Like one of yeah, what he was talking about was not like the center of the Democratic Party, but what emerged out of the failure of the left. So the radical liberals of like Arnold Kaufman and Michael Harrington is who he was describing, and that Michael Harrington's like founded the DSA. So he was recognizing the way the socialist movement had been defeated as early, even before the 1930s, shortly after the Bolshevik Revolution, the Socialist Party of America split up and fragmented in a dozen different parts. And so he was analyzing like early 20th century, late 19th century, early 20th century socialism in America in a book called The Agony of the American Left. And then he was at the time, 1969, saying, what do we do now? Where are the promising trends? And one of them was maybe Michael Harrington's movement for democratic socialism, even though it was obviously insufficient, even though it was a product of defeat. It was like, well, despite all these difficulties, we can still consider this kind of movement to be allied with a developing socialism, or socialism that might be developed because of its embrace of core liberal values like free expression, but not just free expression. And that those values would actually be in opposition to the progressivist values of kind of mass control and manipulation and bureaucratic oversight, which was another, within the spectrum of American politics, kind of left politics. That doesn't represent the views of the social conservatives or the right. But he saw those people as being far worse than the radical liberals who still held to some truly liberal values, meaning, the free individual and free expression and development of people and the development of the subjectivity of everyday citizens, and then also of the working class.
Yeah, I mean, that sort of takes me back to, in the video you talk about Daniel Bell a little bit. And he is in some ways sort of the first end of history in the 50s,
right,
with the end of ideology, I think was his book. And with that one, it was like, it's not just free market capitalism, it's this sort of New Deal social democracy, and we've just had the secret speech from Khrushchev.
Mm-hmm.
So the Soviet Union's a problem, but we can synthesize the best of both things with the liberal rights and the sort of economic safety net. But then what happened with the rest of the 20th century is you end on no, we just needed one of those. We just needed the liberal rights and the democracy, and not so much the economic stuff.
Right, and not so much a powerful working class movement that would confront the institutions of capitalist authority. I mean, so it's like you might have economic reforms. You might pass like a policy for a minimum wage, for instance.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have a developing militant working class movement that had its own political own aim to take political power one way or the other, whether it's through the elections or through revolution. Both those ideas were sort of dead, and Bell was like one of the first people to articulate the death of that idea. When he talks about the death of ideology, he's talking about the death of like Eugene Debs' conception of socialism, the death of the idea that there would be a radical transformation of society that would be created, that transformation would be the work of the workers to change their own conditions. That whole notion had sort of passed away before Bell wrote his book in the 50s.
Right.
I guess my question is, so how does this all tie back to this ever-present question of free speech on the internet being regulated just by virtue of the fact that we're using these platforms that are inherently privately run and to some extent are, arms of the state and are interacting with it?
Well, I guess the way I think of it is maybe simplistic, but it goes like this. The reason that I would be advocating for is that the people who consider themselves to be part of the left embrace the value of free speech to the best of their ability, because they would be giving up the idea that their aim should be to regulate regular people's lives and to manage society so that it is safe or humane. That you would be giving up the idea that the system as it is now can be made to be those things, that you would be accepting the inhumanity of the system you're in, and therefore you'd be saying we need the freedom to develop a new project. And so our goal shouldn't be to take the power structure that is and implement it better, but rather to develop a new power, and that requires having the space and freedom to do so. So there would be a complete change in the perspective, I think, of a lot of people who are on the left, including myself from time to time, away from the idea that, what we need to do is pass the right kinds of policies to make sure people don't behave badly to each other. Like, this emphasis on bullying is like an example of the way the left thinks. Like, we need to stamp out bullying, which means we need to target everyday individuals and modify the institutions so that bad behavior isn't possible amongst the masses.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, beyond being like, well, I mean, that's like a silly idea in many ways. One way is beyond being just entirely subjective, like what is bullying, and is it only bullying when it happens in one direction or not? The scope of that project is insane. Like, you've seen this new thing that Twitter is apparently going to roll out where it's going to attempt to humanize a person before you respond to them. And like, I guess the plan for it, there's like a Mashable article about this that came out this week.
Right.
The plan is that when you're in like a comment thread that's 1 million tweets long, it sort of understands people might be fighting, so it stops and goes, before you respond to Anders, did you know that him and you both enjoy Pepsi? And then it's supposed to.
You both watch. You both like the Good Place. Did you know that?
Like that
Here's his
would
baby picture.
That's right.
that is like some sort of technocratic solution would solve this phenomenon of people disagreeing with each other on the internet is obviously fucking bananas. But I guess I kind of look at this and I think I tend to get into it a little bit with like free speech warriors online, like people that are really kind of focused on that idea, because I think I'm a little bit of a free speech doesn't actually exist kind of person. Like, there's no zero line, but I understand that what we have is communication that we want to not have stifled because it is for the greater good. And then I think that, the right has what they think is essentially the same thing, a goal, and things that need to be protected. And obviously, because these the platforms are run by corporations, they have their own interest, and they will censor anything that is ostensibly a threat to them. And I guess I don't really believe that there's like a neutral ground that could exist. I don't think there's a Twitter that you could exist that is, actually quote unquote free in terms of speech, and that, it allows people to say whatever they want. I'm kind of sympathetic to these fucking MAGA psychos who decided they were all going to go move to something called Parler after they got frustrated with Facebook. I kind of look at that and I go, is that where we go? Do we just make our own fucking platform? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, my goal is to get banned and kicked off of Parler. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree that there is no such thing as free speech in the abstract, and that the value itself is one which is always sort of in development, and it can never be, fully actualized in this perfect way. Like, for example, I recognize the fact that YouTube and Google have to have a way to moderate content, that they can't simply just let anything go up on YouTube, that for a variety of reasons, some of them just practical. Like, if they allowed everything, all sorts of pornography, let's just say they let everything within the bounds of law go up on YouTube, they wouldn't be able to be a useful platform, because I would go to YouTube and say, how do I fix my kitchen sink? And I'd get a pornography video about a plumber. You don't you want to be able to like know that this particular platform will give you a certain kind of content, and that you're not going to get that it has a character, which means curating the content. So I am actually sympathetic to the contradiction that the company is facing, which is, on the one hand, we want to get as many people uploading and participating on the platform as possible, and we want to moderate it, and we also want to get rid of really hateful things or illegal things, and we can't employ enough people to do it with human beings, so we have to develop robots to do it, because you're encouraging such a massive amount of uploads that they don't have the capacity to hire people to watch every video. It's just impossible. So they're kind of stuck in a practical problem. What I would say is that if there's some sort of like YouTubers union should be formed so that people, that just if you look at the practical problems for people creating content on that platform, like, if you're on YouTube and you're creating content on a level where you have thousands of people watching, you shouldn't be able to be taken down any more easily than you could be fired. Like that at that point, it's not such, you're not just one of a million different uploaders. You're someone who's producing a real channel and real revenue stream for the company. So you then at least deserve to actually talk to a human being who has the power to decide before these things happen. I think that would be like a practical solution for my problem. But then the other larger point I was making is that, which is sort of an ideological point, is that the left needs to understand its mission to be about thinking past the current moment, which would mean embracing the idea that we can't simply enforce the values we already have ready to hand, but have to be critical even of those, which means aligning with the value of free speech, even if you don't think it's realized in the current society, especially because it isn't realized in the current society, especially because people who are poor or who are ethnic minorities or what have you are less likely to be heard. And I'll tell you something. I know this as a fact because I've seen on YouTube when I interview Black workers who are activists, the views go down. There's something going on there. Yeah. And maybe it's, I don't know what's going on. But,
well, I mean, YouTube shows you like Hitler videos as suggested videos after every video you watch. So it's probably inherently just a racist robot on some level.
Right. Yeah. But I know that there are like systemic blocks to getting your ideas out, just if you're like Black. And let alone if you are working class and Black, say. You've got a lot, there's not a level playing field. The free speech doesn't mean that there's the championing free speech doesn't mean believing that there's a level playing field. So,
yeah.
Would you join a union with, Sargon of Akkad and Alex Jones and everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. If I wouldn't join a political party with them.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would join a YouTubers union if fighting for specific demands. Sure.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I guess the concept of like a YouTubers union or something like that does actually kind of make a lot of sense here, because my immediate thought when talking about this sort of stuff is like, you ask this question, how do we fix this problem where YouTube has overextended itself with having to create a robot to go around and use an algorithm to do all this work of censoring and, trying to make sure the right things get uploaded, and you go, well, it's impossible because there's not enough employees, right? But in a utopian sense, there are enough employees. They're just not assigned to like this job. I mean, we have, get rid of the military, get rid of all sorts of superfluous shit that exists in capitalism, and then you might have enough people to where like everyone whose job this is has a small amount of the internet to sort of work as a moderator for. I don't know if that even makes sense numbers wise, but like my immediate idea here is, utopia. Like there's a way to fix YouTube to make it sort of run by us and for us and all this stuff. But obviously I'm thinking in a utopian sense, and it's something like a union is actually probably more how you would get there, I guess. That's the missing dots in the middle. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think if you're a monetized YouTube channel, like if you created enough videos and to get enough subscribers to get paid by YouTube, you're in the top like 10 to 5, you're in the top 10%, let's say, of of YouTubers, which means that the amount of content that actually has to be regulated by human employees is not the billions and billions of hours that are uploaded each day, but 10% of that, so let's say, and then really only a small percentage of that is flagged by the algorithm. So we're not talking about an unmanageable feat at that level. If you kind of winnow it down, it's only if you make the absurd claim that they have to watch every single video that it becomes impossible. If you can automate some things and then treat other things with be more engaged with other things, then I think that would make sense. But like now I feel like we're having our first YouTube union meeting. Like, what kind of demands should we really reasonably make? And
yeah. Can be yeah. Well, another thing I've thought about too is with social media. Like, I mean, Parler is something started by the IDW, I guess. But what about a leftist Facebook or Twitter or social media site? Is that marginalizing ourselves, or is it?
They're all leftists already. They're all owned by the globalists. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, our other guests finally spoken up 45 minutes into the podcast.
Yeah, I think that would be. The problem is the left doesn't have the resources to do it as easily as these right wing forces, like real leftists. And also, we're too busy splitting into smaller and smaller sectarian parties. How can we get it together? But I think those kinds of projects would be useful as well.
The Spartacist League would take it over and spam everything about North Korea immediately.
Yeah, I would join that. I'd be on the Spartacist League's version of Twitter, and then or some Maoist version of Twitter where every single day it just looks like regular Twitter. Just struggle session after struggle session. But I think that we're going to have to contest the spaces that exist, the real powers that exist as well. And and there's sort of this entrepreneurial approach, like, we'll just create another company, and if it gets to be successful, we'll run into the same problems that these original companies did. These are not the problems of Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey. These are the problems of these sorts of institutions in this moment.
Yeah.
To round out a couple of things going on the internet while we're still on the topic of, free speech online, let's talk a little bit about, sorry, Anders, you just told me something interesting about the Twitch platform.
Yes. According to Twitch's Twitter account, they have banned the use of the N-word ending in a hard R. And they will automatically block the word across Twitch, including in chat.
I don't know if this will be funny if I mention this, but when you said it before we started recording, I heard you saying you can't use the N-word with a hard on.
Right. And, you can't take any pleasure from it. You can't get there are people who say slurs and are sexually aroused, but you meant
it was hard R, and I heard it
right.
Because I guess, sexually frustrated and my mind goes in a certain direction. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, no kink shaming here on this podcast, I suppose.
Yeah, thank you.
Whatever.
For God's sake.
But probably keep that off the internet if that's your thing. Or at least keep it off your Twitch stream, right? Because there's kids on there.
No, look, I definitely won't be whipping it out during any Zoom calls, with CNN or with you guys, actually.
Well, I appreciate that your Zoom camera is off right now because
I muted my camera, so what I'm really doing.
Yeah, I like to have a hard on and say with a soft A though, because I'm not racist. I'm just appropriative. Twitch is like a kind of funny platform for talking about all this sort of stuff because Twitch has its own scene and its own audience and its own group of people who I upload to it. I found out recently because I started doing a Twitch, or I guessed it on our friends the Antifada's Twitch stream, and I sort of decided I should learn the ropes since I think we're going to start Twitch streaming soon because we have to, because that's where the money is. You're not allowed to call someone a virgin on Twitch or use the term incel. And I thought that was so funny, but then I thought about it and I was like, oh, that's their fucking robot over there is being asked to clear to stop all these fights between people who are calling each other virgins and shit, because it's all gamers. It's all these teenagers and shit. And apparently that's the stuff that makes people really, really mad at each other. So it's going to be kind of hard for me, I think, when I start Twitch streaming because that's hilarious. I don't know. What do you mean you can't call someone a virgin?
Can we have a sidebar, just a content creator to content creator conversation about Twitch for just a second. I know that that's probably not kosher, but how the hell do you do Twitch? I've tried. We created a Twitch channel, but I just don't understand how you could do the 10 to 12 hours a day of streaming to get that platform to work for you. It just seems like, I don't know, it would kill me to try to be a Twitch streamer. What are you planning on doing? Are you gonna just play Minecraft all day? What do you do on
Well,
Twitch?
personally, I find it daunting. I don't understand how the people that do it all day do it, but I think I do like video games, and I think I could probably do an hour a day the same day, like 5 days a week, if I knew I was getting paid for it. The problem I have with that is that I like playing video games for fun, and as soon as you take something that's fun and turn it into work, it's very sad. But
so, are the Antifada, are they playing a game online? Are they?
I believe they are. I know Sean likes with the Civilization game, something like that.
he plays. Okay, so Sean is like a big history nerd, and if you asked, I think, him about Civilization, he would laugh at you the way, if you're into metal and someone goes, "Do you like Metallica?" They'd go, "Oh, no, there's all this other shit." So he plays some fucking history game called like European Union or something that it goes into like trading in like the fucking early, whatever Renaissance
It's
period.
the Brexit negotiations, the game.
It's insane. I don't understand it at all. But he plays it all day, and then I think Andy plays chess.
As a Gen Xer, because you guys are clearly millennials, but
I'm Gen Z, actually.
Are you Gen Z? Oh, okay.
They're not.
That's great. So, well, you look, you could.
No,
be
I'm Y. I'm millennial.
Yeah. So, as a Gen Xer, I have a difficulty thinking about playing, like, I don't know, Myst for an hour a day, or like Pac-Man or Donkey Kong for that long. And the new games, I kind of am aware that they exist. My kid, here's my relationship with video gaming. My 18-year-old son, who's in senior year of high school, is like waking me up at 5 a.m. We got to get online right now. The PlayStation 5 is on sale at Walmart. Click, hurry, click PlayStation 5. Oh, it's over here at I don't know. They're selling it directly. And then so my whole, it's basically Tickle Me Elmo, the video game, and it's hell on earth. I hate PlayStation. I don't like video games anymore. I want to sleep, but
well, I mean, the fact that what a video game is still strange to me, that a dad would know that. Like, I remember having to explain to my dad that you have to buy games for a console. You can't just give me the console and play anything.
Oh, yeah.
You need to put a game in there.
Well, I had an Atari, or actually my friends had an Atari when I was 10, or so. I remember Pitfall. You guys ever play Pitfall?
Yeah. I remember Pitfall. Yeah,
we played that on computer when I was on PC.
Here's the thing.
We're doing Ready Player One on this. Okay, go ahead.
Well, if you hate video games, people also like to watch that happen. So you could theoretically Twitch stream, because it's a popular genre on streaming is like a person getting really frustrated with what they're playing. I think there's entertainment value in that. That's what PewDiePie was when he first started, I think. I remember years before he was ever famous, somebody going, "You got to watch this Swedish guy. He just gets angry at fucking MS Paint video game, and it's pretty funny." So I don't know. There's things. You also don't have to play games.
This is clearly the way to propagandize the youth, is to play video games and talk about Karl Marx at the same time. I will figure it out.
I'm thinking we might do. We did one. God, I was wiped. We did 2 hours, and that wiped me. But I think either tomorrow, maybe Monday, early this week, I might do a football live Twitch stream with somebody.
There you go.
That might be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's fucking weird. I don't understand it. It's Zoomer shit, but apparently it's the future. So I think we better all strap in and figure it out. So look forward to our upcoming Twitch channel, where I'll be playing Lego Harry Potter and talking about whatever I read that week. But
right
before we get bogged down in Twitch, let's talk a little bit about this Julian Assange thing. Did he get pardoned or not? I heard it was happening the other day, and then I heard nothing happened.
It was fake news. It was erroneously reported by some Fox News talking head. I hope he gets pardoned. You know, that would own the libs, and that's what our president is want to do. Our president for the next month, anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was thinking about this because, like, there was a period about 10 or so years ago where that was like the left, you know, to me anyway, as a 20-year-old kid in St. Paul, just Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. That was such a revolutionary thing, and that was kind of the closest thing to like any sort of organization to even have solidarity with, you know, was just supporting WikiLeaks and what they were doing. You know, those that felt like they were the only people doing stuff. Of course, people were organizing in all sorts of ways, but like that was the front and center, like media attention thing. And I think at a certain point, it just became less of a priority for a lot of millennial leftists. And a lot of that just has to do with Julian Assange, the guy, and the various things that he was credibly accused of and should answer for. But that kind of, I think, made us lose sight of the importance of this issue, you know, because this has huge ramifications for, I mean, you can call it free speech, but really journalism, for dissent in the empire, actually questioning
the
and
very
exposing.
first time I got canceled on Twitter, it was about Julian Assange.
Oh, yeah?
And I was saying, look, we can't take these allegations seriously when they're so clearly politically motivated. And that, and I got I guess the term is ratioed. And
When
also,
was this?
and this was like, I don't know, God, it was a long time ago now. It was like 2008, maybe 2009. It was a while ago.
Okay,
But
wow. Early.
I ended up like someone who ended up being like the editor of science fiction reviews for Publishers Weekly got me in a conversation with one of these rad lib feminist journalists, the blue checkmark types, before the blue checkmarks existed. And like I realized that I had handled myself so poorly in the exchange and looked like such a brocheless shitlord mansplainer that I was probably never going to have any of my work, because I write science fiction novels as well, never have any of my work published or reviewed well in Publishers Weekly again. And so that was the first time I recognized that, oh, hey, if you take the wrong position on some of these things, it can have career implications. And of course, ever since then, I've done nothing but try to take the wrong position because I'm self-destructive, I guess.
Yeah.
You gotta lean in, yeah.
Well, you know, eventually everyone on Twitter gets canceled, and then the playing field is sort of leveled all over again.
Yeah, I mean, back then it was like a revelation that, people in authority and it can matter to your career are like watching what you say on Twitter. I was like, oh, shit. And I'm arguing with them. Oh, that's maybe not the best.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, but now but there's also I feel like it's a double-edged sword. You know, if you make your brand just shit talking as many people as possible, then that can also be lucrative.
Yeah,
know?
but who wants to do that? I mean, I guess there's people who have nothing else to do but need the money. But I can't imagine. I mean, I guess sometimes we get accused. Zero Books gets accused of being contrarian or that kind of thing. But no, the anti-social justice warrior industry sucks and it's boring, and I hate it. I hate it just as much as the Twitter mobs. So
yeah,
right.
I kind of think that what we're experiencing right now is going to work itself out on like a long timeline, in the same way that like in my lifetime, tattoos used to be a thing that you couldn't get a job if you had, and an entire generation just came up that all had tattoos, and then everyone had to go, well, I guess I have to hire someone, so this entire thing is rendered kind of moot. And that isn't a fun thing to think about, because that really just puts the job into Father Time's hands and not in our own. But yeah,
my wife started tattoos like 2 years ago. She's, we're both in our late 40s now, so clearly tattoos are no longer a signifier of some sort of edginess. It's sort of like he likes cat emojis and tattoos. So
here's
I got my ear pierced at 26.
there you go. That's
only body mod.
Oh man, that's edgy, dude. You need to be careful. How else are you gonna get a job, Anders?
I don't know. God, I'm lucky. I'm lucky I work for. Oh fuck! I meant to bring this up earlier, but when we're talking about censorship and just sort of soft censorship, right? The information tags of certified election results say otherwise, Mr. President, that type of thing. My other job is for Russian state media, RT, and Twitter, and I believe YouTube make it so it says this is a Russian operation. It's Russian funded.
Hold on. What you work for Putin? Are you telling me that I'm? Yeah. Oh my God! Now I'm going to be canceled in 2 different ways. I put on this freaking Putin podcast, and I had the wrong opinion about Julian Assange's rape allegations.
Just denounce me, and then it'll be easy. Or you can say what there's some Biden official who went on RT and then later was like, I didn't know it was Russian. I apologize. But they say they have, it says this is Russian funded media, which fair enough. But they don't say that for the BBC. They don't say that for France 24 or Voice of America or any of the other state media that's allied with the United States or is the United States. Western media, CBC, Canada, that they don't feel the need to.
I think Facebook might sometimes say like the BBC is state owned or things like that, but it should certainly be consistent,
Yeah.
But I do think that they are allowed to say that Putin is bad as well. When say this is Russian owned media and Putin is evil and don't listen to this. And
by the way, I'm allowed to say that too. I can, like we're allowed to say whatever we want about Putin. I don't love him. I think he's very bad in many ways.
Yeah,
I'm kidding around.
I think I remember Abby Martin at one point sort of talking about this and saying that, like, yeah, there's certain stuff you can't say on RT when she goes on, and there's a lot of stuff you can't say on American media, American corporate media that is American state media. And she just sort of went, that's why I go on both, because that's true of both things.
No, like I would totally go on RT, and I'd take a show. If someone offered me to do a show on RT for $0, like I'd do it in a heartbeat. And then I would just laugh and love every moment of the hate that I got from everybody. So I'm not really allergic to RT, although I do think that the mission of RT is not progressive, but just to make all the problems and contradictions within the United States obvious and to kind of move along the dissolution of the superpower.
Right. It's to get Americans to question American hegemony, which is, has certain. I don't agree with all of the agenda, right? But I should add, I'm in control of what I say, and
right.
As far as I know, they don't censor people.
But they put Richard Spencer on well before anyone in America did. And they also put Noam Chomsky on and Christopher Hedges and just anybody who was kind of a dissident. And it didn't matter what their politics were, really. It's just like every contradiction in American society, RT wanted to highlight it for everybody. And, I understand. We are the great imperialist pig dogs, deserve to be taken down by our communist overlords.
Well, with that, let's sort of round us out. Come to a sort of hypothesis regarding this entire story and discussion here, because we started with talking about this possible censorship that you're experiencing and sort of got into the theoretical implications of it. I don't know, what's your takeaway from all this?
One of the main things that I try to say in different ways and explore, hopefully even through the work that we publish, especially as like podcasts and YouTube videos, is this idea that the American left and maybe even the Anglo left has to break from the establishment liberal version of the left, because we have to embrace the idea of liberating working people and trying to develop a new kind of power in the world, rather than take it upon ourselves to be the new regulators, to be the new bureaucrats, to try to piece by piece in a fragmented way fix every problem, maybe even one person at a time. So one of the things that I hope will come out of this moment is that it will underscore just how the powers that come from the big tech community that seem to be woke maybe or progressive can easily be turned against the actual left, and that the people need to understand that these institutions and these bureaucrats are not our friends, and they are in fact our political enemies.
Right. And that,
So that's the main thing that I would put forward as kind of my ideological perspective. And I hopefully one of the things that's being revealed at this moment as Biden takes power is that, you know, the big problems are not going away and the institutions are still there, and we have to fight them and develop something else.
Yeah. You know, this comes up a lot, and it comes up a lot. It comes out of the mouths of some of those antisocial, you know, media warriors you were talking about earlier, and it's always so frustrating because I always look at it and I go, the worst person you know just made a great point. It's still a great point. This thing where you were talking specifically about the bureaucracy that's behind all this censorship is, you know, it is true. There's also a George Carlin quote that gets brought up all the time. And George Carlin said a lot of things that weren't just this, but he did say that, you know, PC culture is fascism with a prettier whatever on the outside of it. I can't remember the exact quote or whatever.
Right.
He did say that, and he was making a point about this, which is that, this is a weapon that might be conveniently aimed at your cultural and political enemies right now, but it very well could be swung back around in your own face. And that in itself, I do not disagree with at all. And so that question hangs in the air and causes us to, you know, to need to answer it, to figure out what do we do about this? I don't know. But with that, go ahead.
Tough. Go ahead. You go ahead. No, you.
Right, yeah, because I don't know how to fucking answer it either.
Well, I think it's kind of like the state too, you know, like a censorship law, right? Who, you know, we could say, oh, they're outlawing the N-word. That's great. You know, I don't think white people should say the N-word, you know, but if it's a law that's cracking down on people's speech, even if the stated reason may be for, you know, stifling bigotry or the right, the way it's going to end up working, usually based on who's in control of the society, is stifling speech that's actually questioning the status quo and coming from the left. You know, like that's ultimately gonna backfire. But I think part of the solution is like you don't have to demand that people be censored, but you also don't have to engage with them. You know, there's no point in arguing with, say, Amy Therese. It's a waste of time. Like, you don't have to give these people the time of day who are, you know, the just sort of the provocateurs or the edgelords. Like, it can be kind of a self-regulating thing, I guess, is the closest thing I have to a solution.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to stop myself before I sort of argue in circles, because, I mean, if I didn't really kind of make my point of view on this known, that it would be kind of betraying what, you know, it is to have a podcast. And you know, I definitely like to explore all sides of this and stuff, and I don't think I know all the answers to this, but I do get a little frustrated with people who take the point of view of the censored, or take the, you know, cast themselves in the role of it, when what's happening to them is not really that, in at least the classical sense. I mean, a lot of people talk about losing jobs over things they've said on Twitter, and I sort of look at it and go, did you ever have the job to begin with in this capitalist system? I mean, maybe you had it before, and, you know, this method of communication allowed a thing to happen that was already poised to happen, and to me, it calls into question the validity of the entire platform, or, you know, or the fucking entire thing known as capitalism that this is all operating under. Maybe that's the fucking problem, you know? But I do think it is interesting to raise the question of, like, well, can we do something from the ground up about these platforms that sort of assuages all this and prevents some of these things from stopping us from organizing and things like that, whether organizing towards the betterment of the working class or the subject object thing, the entire fucking goal.
Right. Well, I think these platforms are utilities, and they should be expropriated is my view, and the way to make these decisions is, I think, democratically and not from the higher up, whether it's a private or a private bureaucrat or a state censor. It's the people who use these platforms should control them.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I land. Nationalize.
What's the deal with Amy Therese? I have to ask, what's going on? Because I knew her when she was on the Dead Pundit Society. I've actually interviewed her once. And then she started her own podcast, and I found it to be unlistenable. It wasn't so much I was offended. And so I just couldn't really stick with it. And then apparently she's become, I guess she's kind of cute, although I've never really seen a picture of her. So she's got a lot of people on Twitter who follow her, and she says a lot of shitty things, she does a lot of stuff. I mean, she attacked me out of nowhere for no reason, and I said some of them. She said BreadTube was the biggest mistake, and I said, that's funny because your mom said you were.
Oh, nice.
And that got her
roasted,
and that got her like I feel like I got her respect that way, and then we were like palling around after.
Well,
so I don't know what's going on with her.
I mean, you just asked another unanswerable question, man. No one knows. And also,
do you think is she right wing? Is that what everyone's consensus is? Or
I don't think it does. I don't think it really matters, honestly. I think it's a waste of time and energy to even engage with her. Is where I've come down on it.
And I know her for it.
Well, and this isn't just about her. This is about mostly Twitter.
Also about the Red Scare podcasters. And no, okay.
No, we just tripped so many algorithms. All those people are going to be visiting our page right now.
I think social media has induced this tendency to psychoanalyze people based on their posts, which I think you can do to a small extent. But the way that someone like her, and there's a lot of people like this, do it, it just gets ridiculous. And it becomes, a matter of ideology. This person posted this thing in 2017, and apparently they hung out with this person. That means that this is their ulterior motive. And it's just like trying to dive deep into the psyches of people and tell them more about themselves than they know based on their tweets. It's just like a very navel-gazy, just
if you're going to do it, you should get paid to do it, I mean, that's by the hour.
That's the thing. I'm going to go ahead and do exactly what Anders just condemned. I'm going to psychoanalyze someone on the internet based on their tweets.
Cool.
I've been thinking about this a lot because there's people that are like extremely online and they're extremely anti-woke, and they sort of seem to just get up every day and just go, all right, I'm going to go back to, yelling at this thing on Twitter and quote tweeting and stuff like that. And it's all laundered through the premise that they're these passionate communists, and then you go, well, what organizing work are you doing outside of this? Right. And, people often accuse me of this, and I go, well, I'm just part of my job. Unfortunately, I can justify it on some level, although, sure, it's also internet addiction, But I mean, on some level, it's advertising our podcast. With people that are just accounts, I think what's going on here, especially with the anti-woke stuff, is a lot of times, if you do some digging, these people were like reactionaries out in the open 10 years ago or something. And then what happened is a new thing to launder this anxiety and resentment towards specific people that fall under the umbrella of woke appeared, and it made it, they get rewarded for it because people from the left are also pissed off at identity politics being weaponized and used very cynically and stuff like that. And so I think with these people, the thing to look out for is that they have the same target every time they tweet, but the middle part, the means to attack that target are always wildly different. Like they're reaching for different tools in the rhetorical toolkit every time they attack whatever the fuck this thing known as wokeness is. And to me, that spells out a consistency in what you have a resentment about, but an inconsistency in your overall ideology of like why you're mad at it. And to me, that just looks like you're just fucking, you're just pissed off at someone. I don't know.
I think that we need to recognize as like people who do internet for a living on one level or another, that what we're talking about is branding categories or market categories. Like the anti-woke left category is a category online.
Yeah.
Got a demographic.
Right.
And so you end up playing to these demographics. So the woke demographic is a demographic, the comedy, and that what it really is a symptom of is how the left has become a marketing category rather than an actual political movement. And having said that, I want to move on and say everyone needs to write to YouTube to help my channel. And while you're at it, you might go by our Patreon and support us there. But yeah, I mean, anyway, I'm going to say that in earnest in just a moment. But it does strike me. I'm not outside of this at all. But I think that as much as it's about the individual psychology, it really is about the institutional forces and the political reality that we're facing, and that who knows what someone like Amy Therese would be doing if the algorithms acted differently, and also who knows what Douglas Lain would be doing if the algorithms acted differently.
Yeah,
True.
no, fair.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what the fuck we would be doing? I wouldn't have a job probably if the algorithm hadn't just hit me in a certain way that ended up in my favor. I got censored, or it was attempted to be censored by the fucking government. That's probably why you heard about this show. So
I had you on the podcast when that happened. That's the first time I heard of you, and I asked you for the world's funniest joke, and you looked at me, or you just sat there in silence. Says, "What the fuck is wrong with you?"
I remember. I was remain unqualified to answer that question. So
I understand.
The world's funniest joke, Amy Therese.
Oh shit!
Oh no!
Shots fired. I have a feeling this podcast is going to come back to bite all of us in the ass.
Yeah. This was a mistake.
Maybe we could just.
It was my fault for bringing her up. But I do. Yeah, it really does boil. Too often it boils down to just friend enemy distinctions. It's like I agree with this position because I like this guy, or I like this person, or I don't like this person. They support that. So and it's you're not actually. Too often we're not actually thinking through the issues themselves, and it becomes. As Daniel Denver put it on this really great episode he did on The Dig recently with Olufemi Taiwo, who wrote this great essay about identity politics, which is that a lot of the critics of quote-unquote identity politics, for lack of a better term, have just become like a funhouse mirror of the people we're critiquing. It's just become this unwinnable, like, friend enemy situation where we're just talking about individuals and proclivities and not actually discussing the issues. And that's I think one of the drawbacks to doing politics on social media.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think that actually our friend Sean KB probably put it best a while back. Me and him were talking about it, and the way he put it was that it's just the other side of the culture war. And when you have woke people on one side and anti-woke people on the other side, what they're both doing is pretending to speak on behalf of the, unwashed masses that they are not a part of. Right. Everyone's going, poor people are all racist on one side, and on the other side, people are going, no, they're, you don't know what you're talking about. And both of these things...
poor people are racist, which is the other one.
It's fucking... No one's a monolith, right? And so what you don't realize is that's the dichotomy. The answer to this is not to look at things this way at all, right? Not just, it's a binary, it's black or it's white. And I think that a lot of the anti-woke people...
If you're on Twitch, the big thing is don't get a hard on if you use the N-word.
Yeah, definitely. Because you'll be deplatformed, and no one likes to be deplatformed while they have a hard on. Take it from me.
That's right.
All right. Well, listen, we already we woke so many beasts of the internet with this podcast. We did a summoning ritual, and I'm sure they're here by now, so we should probably
First
wrap
part
up.
was so tame and nice and good, and then we just went off the rails here in the second half.
That's all right. We do both on this show. We have some listeners who are here for the dirt, and some who are here for the whatever the opposite of dirt is. Yeah. So enjoy.
Which are grown in dirt.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Well, in all on earnestness, though, you should go help out Zero Books. So go ahead and do your pitch, Doug.
Oh yeah, just if you want to, if you've heard this and you don't think I'm a shitlord and you'd like to help us not be censored by the YouTube algorithm, tweet at them. I don't know, write them an email, tell them that you think that it's a travesty of justice. You can also go by. You really can go to our Patreon page, not necessarily to donate, but to watch the original video that was taken down because it is up through Vimeo as a public post on Patreon. Maybe you guys can link to it there. I think it's a serious issue. It certainly is something I'm worried about for myself, but also overall, I think the way that the big tech companies are censoring people right now is not only going to keep people from understanding the world more fully, but going to create a massive backlash. And we should get on the other side of that.
All right. Well, press F in the chat for Zero Books, I think is what the kids say. Poggers. No, I think it's a good thing. I can't remember. Maybe it's W.
F means that you've died, isn't it?
I don't. Oh, yeah. No, don't press F. Listen, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm getting old. Poggers. All women do is eat chiclets and lie or whatever. Eat hot chip. This is the end of the podcast. Let's do plugs. Anders, you got anything?
At Anders Lee here on Twitter. Redacted tonight on YouTube. Check out our Twitch stream. We're going to be having more and more stuff. And our Patreon, we recently did a fun episode about our theme. The
guy who sings our theme song, Reverend Wright. Yes. That's what he's known for.
Yeah, that was. By the way, that was a remix of the sermon. He came in and recorded it special for us. But we did a thing about him, and we're gonna have more goodies on there. I might release some chapters of my book I wrote a long time ago about Ralph Nader becoming president. Maybe we'll put that on the Patreon. Let us know.
All right. Doug, you got anything?
We've just, I want to plug our YouTube channel while it's still up. Go check out Zero Books on YouTube. And I will say that we have some good books coming out or they're out now. The Circle of the Snake by Grafton Tanner and Unlearning Marx is a good book despite its title. And despite the fact that the author and I are not exactly the same kind of Marxists. So those are two things I'll just plug. And also, I understand that Obama really likes The Good Place, and I think that's on Netflix. So I'll plug that.
All right.
It needs your help, yeah.
Yeah.
The Zero Books bump for The Good Place.
My other shows, Why You Mad, my Addis Farrell jokes and everything. You guys all know that. We have new merch coming up soon, and Twitch stream. I think it's finally going to happen. So come watch us on Twitch. Yell the N-word at me, but not with a hard R. And please, if you want to call me a virgin and you don't want to get deplatformed from Twitch, don't say the N. I'm not sure how this works. I don't know. All right, everyone. That's a podcast. It's finished.
It's finished.